Okay, guys, we're live, and I've got a really special guest here tonight, and he is a phenomenal race driver. He's come up to the ranks, and he's now starting to make a lot of waves in this racing industry of ours in South Africa. He's probably top international standard as well. It's just a question of getting him out there and getting him to prove himself. Which is certainly, it's a money-driven industry, this. But he started go-kart racing at the age of 4, which, I mean, most toddlers don't even know how to ride a little plastic little scooter. That's, these things that you buy off the shelf. So instead of giving him toys, his dad decided to get him into some real stuff, some really crazy fast go-karts. Now, what I've definitely seen is that all top racing drivers today all seem to start with go-karts. If you look at the Formula One guys, if you look at Jonathan Thomas as well, which we've had on the show, he also started with go-karts, also did tremendously well. And so it's Byron Mitchell, and I've also got his girlfriend, Kelly, who's being kind of like instructed by Byron, as I think what a couple to have, to have your girlfriend actually also start racing. You got a common hobby, so to speak, and a common passion, and so we're going to have a little chat to Kelly as well about some of her stuff and maybe some of the action between the two of you. I'm sure there'll be some stories over there. So, Byron, if you'd just like to introduce yourself, just tell us a little bit about where you started racing and how you've come up through the ranks and where we are today.
Yeah, how's it, man? It's good to be here.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm just Byron Mitchell, obviously. I started, it was quad bikes. I started in quad bike.
Quad bikes.
It was off-road racing, yeah. That and there's an interesting story behind this. So my brother, he's 4 years older than me, and my dad bought us quad bikes when I was 3. I was 3 years old, yeah. It was a little 50cc, small little quad bike. And he bought my brother the same bike. We got the same thing, everything. And the story behind the quad bikes was my grandpa actually used to race motorbikes. So my dad's dad. And he actually participated the Isle of Man and when he was in his day of racing. And unfortunately, he's had his fair share of bad accidents, as any motorbike rider does, And my granny said, that's it. No one in this family will ever ride anything on wheels, two wheels.
Yeah.
And so my dad found a loophole and decided to go buy quad bikes instead. So at the age of 3, we ended up getting quad bikes and we ended up trying them out. And my brother he was 4 years older than me. So he was 7, obviously. And we ended up practicing a little bit and we were ready to go into the racing scene. And then it turned out that apparently you're not allowed to race at 3. You're only allowed to start racing at 4 in the primary school classes, they used to call it.
Yeah.
So my brother started racing and then I obviously had to wait until I turned 4. And then as soon as I turned 4, my dad put me on the quad bike and that was it, started racing. I can't say that I was any good, I must say. I mean, at that age, I don't think you even in it for the competition at all. You're just trying to have some fun, experience it. And then slowly but surely, I think as soon as I started getting a little bit more involved in it, a little bit older, I think I won my first championship at 6. I won my first off-road championship at 6. So that was 2 years later.
And the people in that class, were they all 6 years old?
Or there was obviously an age gap. So you could say between 4 and 8, or let's just say, I'm not sure what the number was. I can't remember. But they were all very similar aged. And we all rode 50cc quad bikes. So all the quad bikes had the same power. And obviously you would have pretty much the same tires, the same everything like that. It wasn't, it was very not so regulated. Let's put it like that. And you just got on there, and I'll never forget these. I've got videos still back of the day where the tracks were so small because it's obviously you've got children riding and you would have the parents running around behind the kids who are on the bikes because obviously they're so nervous about the kids falling or something like that.
Yeah.
So a lot of the tracks were extremely small and it was good fun. And then I just worked my way up slowly but surely from quad bikes. I think when I was about 10 years old, or 9 or 10 years old, we had moved on to, obviously, you've worked your way up the ranks. So we had a 50cc, then we went to a 100cc quad bike. And then from 100cc, your next step was a 250. And then from the 250s, you would go on to the 450s. And the 450s were regarded as like your Formula One spec. They were like the top bikes, you know.
Gee, 450, damn.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a big engine.
Yeah.
Go-kart.
And then at 10, my brother actually had a very bad fall out by Philadelphia, just down the road here. And he went over, it was this really, really windy and really sandy track.
Yeah.
So, of course, it was like sandstorm galore. So, I mean, you couldn't see further than probably 20 meters in front of you. That's as far as first you could see. And he was going on the first lap, flat out, and there was this I don't even know what they call them anymore, but it's like a hump, like a ditch, I can put it like that. And there were danger boards up and everything, as there should have been. But the problem is because it was so sandy, no one could really see anything.
Couldn't see it, yeah.
And he went flat out, and he went straight over the one side, and he went straight into the
into the dip,
outside of
into
the
ditch.
up part of the hump.
Oh my word!
And his wrists got caught in the clutch and the brake, the front brake and the clutch, and he went straight over the handlebars and snapped both his wrists clean.
Gee,
so that was a scare for my dad and my mom, obviously, massively. And then, I mean, we were all racing quads at that time. My dad was also racing. And then I think from that, he called it quits. And we said, that's it, no more quad bike racing.
Yeah.
And we took a break for like a year or 2 years. And my brother didn't obviously want to get back on the bike and all of that. And then I had this one friend, Tyron, who had just now moved up, because we were racing at the same age, obviously. And he just moved up to a 250 when he was like 11 or 12. He moved up to a 250 now, which is your one step before the big boys, as they used to call them.
Yeah.
You had to be 16 before you could move into the big boys. It was like a rule. You had to be 16 before you could get on that 450.
Yeah.
And he had been racing in the 250 class for a while, and it bit me. I said to my dad, I really, really wanted to get back into it a bit. And then my dad sat down. I'll never forget. He sat down and he said, right, he had me, my mom, my brother, everyone there. And he said, right, do we want to get back into this or whatever? And my brother said, nope, he's done. My mom was not into it. My dad was, half, and I was all for it. So anyway, my dad, being the awesome guy he is, ended up buying me a 250 full race spec Yamaha YZ 250 or whatever it was called. I can't remember. But it had the full race spec. It had flipping the race suspension on it, the race cams in it. It had everything. And we then started racing the 250s. And then, I must say that was probably my highlight of my whole off-road racing career. There was one singular year where I think as you grow older, you get used to the adrenaline side of it, and you start becoming more familiar with like what you're actually doing and what's happening. And that was the year where we actually did all of the big races. We traveled around South Africa. We raced in Kimberley. There was a race there. I can't remember the town, just outside of Kimberley. That was super, probably one of the most dangerous races I've ever done. It was in the middle of a hurricane, like sandstorm type thing. Like it was like chaotic winds.
Wasn't perhaps Boshoff?
I can't remember the name.
Okay.
It was just outside of Kimberley. It was a while ago.
Yeah.
And then, the highlight, I think, for me that whole year was we actually did the Roof of Africa, the junior Roof of Africa.
Oh, wow.
So we did that, and I did that at 12. So that was it was my last year of off-roading.
What's that route, Roof of Africa?
So that is in Lesotho once a year. So obviously now how it works is, I'm sure a lot of guys that in the off-road scene obviously know this.
Yeah.
But you get the senior roof, and I don't know if they still do the junior roof, but they used to do a junior roof, which was basically the same thing, just obviously not as intense as the senior roof because you've got the youngsters doing it. And that race, I'm going to be honest, was definitely one of the most toughest races I can say I've ever done. I mean, I think in one lap, because it was like a circuit that you had to go around, and how the rules worked in that is you had the clock would start and you had 2 hours, and then a bike would go off every, say, 20 seconds. I can't remember the exact number.
Yeah.
A bike would go off every 20 seconds, let's say, and you would race, and you would... The leader who does the most, a guy that wins, is the guy that does the most amount of laps, and he finishes first. So as soon as that timer ends, your 2-hour mark is up. If you are on your 4th lap or whatever it was, or 3rd lap or whatever, you finish the lap, and whatever your total time was your obviously determined where you finished.
Yeah.
So obviously, if you only did 3 laps, you're not going to beat the guys that did 4 laps. And if the guys that did 4 laps, if all of them did 4 laps, then you would have to have like the guy that did it in 2 hours and 24 minutes beats the guy in 2 hours and 25 minutes, whatever. Yeah. And the Roof of Africa, I'll never forget this. We still made jokes going up about it. About how tough it was going to be in that, because we've never done it before, and we were excited about it. And we got to the course, and we got to the pits and that, and we walked around a bit the pits, and we saw the first like piece of the roof. You went straight over the start-finish line, you turned right, you dropped into about a 10-meter ditch. You went straight down into a 10-meter the river had dried out, and it was just like complete. You go straight down into it, you try to ride through this dried out river, and then you go straight up the other side, and then you start the roof. And we looked at this and we were like, geez, okay, they're really throwing us in the deep end here. Because it was a proper proper hard start to the
And you were
route.
12 years old.
I was 12, yeah. And then, I think that race, the amount of stories I've got there, sheesh. I mean, on the first lap, every single person in the class got lost within about 10 minutes of the first lap. I think we all got to this big open field. And how the Roof of Africa set is...
But you're on a quad now.
Yeah, quad bike.
Yeah.
And
so you got no navigator?
No, nothing. So how we used to navigate was they used to take like little orange stickers, and they would put an orange sticker on a tree.
Okay.
So then one sticker meant, so your stickers always had to be on the left-hand side of you.
Yeah.
That means that you're going in the right direction. Because if they're on the right-hand side, you were riding the course in reverse, and you could drive into someone, obviously. So the stickers had to be on your left. And then when they would put 3 stickers, it would indicate that, like 3 in a line, it would indicate there's a left-hand turn coming. And then when there's 2 stickers, it means you have to turn left here. And then there was candy tape marked in that. And Lesotho was one of the only tracks where they used to take pink spray cans and they used to spray paint arrows on the floor. But they would do this the week before the race.
So they're done by the time you get there.
So there's cows and donkeys and horses and people. And by the time you get there, that pink spray can's gone. Or the sticker that was put on the tree has been eaten off the tree now.
Yeah.
So I'll never forget, we got to about maybe 10 minutes into the race, and I came around this corner, and there was a big open field. And then every single oak that started in front of me and behind me, we were all collectively like sitting there, like looking at each other, not knowing what to do, where to go. And we were like, you had guys trying to go off to the right and the left, and everyone's trying to find the route, because this could be a big factor in who wins the race. I mean, whoever finds the way first could save 5 minutes, or, you never know.
Yeah.
And anyway, I remember after like 2-3 minutes of us all, no one knew where to go. I was actually the one that found the sticker. And I'll never forget. So what I decided to do was I thought, okay, I'm going to drive slowly to the sticker to act like I don't know where I'm going. And then as soon as I get there, I'm going to pin it. And to my unfair knowledge or whatever, I didn't realize obviously someone behind me also saw the sticker. And I was just pottering along super slowly. And the next thing, I had about 4, 5, or 6 guys come flying past because they obviously saw the stick as well.
Yeah.
And then I just got left in the dust for that like 2 minutes or whatever. And when you're following people, it's so difficult to follow closely because you can't see anything. You're on gravel and dirt and that. And then, from there, we managed to navigate our way through. I mean, that race, we had 4. We had 4 river crossings we had to go through. The one river crossing was so bad, your bike was floating.
Oh, my word.
You had the air keeping you off. So you literally were just using the rear tires to move you, but you're getting pushed along from the current. And now you enter the river here, but you only come out here. So then obviously the next few laps, the guys learned, okay, you would have to enter here to come out there, or you would, you'd go too far along.
Yeah.
And I think, and then after I finished that race, I think we finished 6th overall. So, I mean, it wasn't a great weekend, but I mean, it was an experience.
Still a good result.
Yeah, it was very good. I mean, there was over 200 guys there. So it was a massive event. And we finished 6th, and my mate that came with me actually finished 3rd. So he did very well. And then after that, I think I said to my dad, I had this fulfillment, or whatever you want. How does it go? What? Full. You know what I'm trying to say. Like I felt
you were fulfilled.
Yeah, I was fulfilled.
You wanted to do this.
I felt that I had enough of.
And you reached your limit.
Off-roading.
Okay.
I just
Saturated.
felt that. That was it. I'd done what I wanted to achieve.
Content.
I didn't really want to keep pursuing
Yeah.
this. And then we took a break, and then I got into circuit racing. I'm sure this is obviously why I'm here, but how I got into circuit racing.
Yeah.
You know the go-karting track at Canal Walk?
Yes.
That's where it started.
Jeez, I think that's quite a tough little track, that.
So
We had a little run there the other day with the Supercar Club.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So
Arms.
I was 13, probably just about to turn 14. And my dad, my brother, and some friends went there as like just a fun Friday evening, whatever it was. And my dad obviously but he's always been his whole life very good at anything with a motor. And we always used to like tune him when we were racing quads, like, because he always used to say, come on, you can do better than that. You can go quicker. And we always used to say, come on, you do better then. You come show us.
Yeah.
And then that's how he got into quad bike racing, because he tried to encourage us to go further. So we went to the go-karting track in Canal Walk, and I'll never forget.
At your dad, at which stage he had a bad accident? That
Yeah,
When he was
ankle of his,
younger.
was that on a quad bike?
So no,
bike.
yeah, when he was
On a
about
motorbike.
my age, on a motorbike coming back from a Marna side, he
Okay.
slid, and obviously there was the sunset, and he slid in that, and that's when he lost his foot in that massive bike crash. But that was a road bike. Yeah,
He whacked his leg on those concrete boulders that stop people from parking on their lawn. So he flipped, hit his leg on it, and it was hanging on by a tendon.
So what happened was that bike hooked the pavement, and it flung
Flung
he
him.
slid on the tar, and it hit the pavement like that,
Yeah.
and he flipped straight up. And then his foot obviously went and just smashed into that concrete ball, and that was it. Look, obviously I was probably about negative
Yeah, he
30
wasn't
years
born yet.
old at the time, so I don't know what happened exactly.
Okay, before you even
Yeah,
born.
way before.
Okay, wow.
He must have been about in his 20s when that happened. Yeah.
So he did all this racing and stuff with that
Yeah.
gammy leg of his.
So obviously he's an engineer. He's got his own engineering shop.
Yeah.
And he engineered a boot that obviously he could use on the quad bike, that it wouldn't flex, but he could use it so it would be lengthened and all that.
Yeah.
So he made himself that, and that's how he raced. And then when we went go-karting now at Canal Walk, me and my brother said, nah, there's no ways you're going to beat us. No ways, blah, 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 going off like as youngsters do.
Yeah.
And he gave us a hiding. Eh?
That's
He gave us a hiding.
he's a man with a mission.
Yeah.
I admire him so much. I mean, for the way that he supports you guys as well. And
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
he's just in it to the last 9 yards. I mean, the way that he supports, and he's at those pits every day, and he's working, and he's engineering in his shop, which you're working in now. But we'll get to that later on. Yeah.
Yeah, he's an awesome guy. I mean, I've always said, and I will say it again, the thing with my dad that I've picked up in my life is he has always supported whatever me and my brother want to do. When we wanted to play tennis, golf, when I tried out for rugby in school, he was there at the rugby trials. He would support me in anything I wanted to do. And as soon as I started progressing in a sport, then he would start investing a lot more time and money. So when I started, when I was doing well in quad biking, he would always try give me the best kit, the best bike, the best everything he could afford.
But you still worked for it, though.
Yeah. And then when we went into go-karting, I remember we weren't the wealthiest of families in karting. I mean, geez, there's some guys there that are like crazy.
Yeah.
And he would always try his best to give me and my brother new tires and new this and new that. And we always used to try our best. And I mean, it's got me a long, far way. And even when we got into the main circuit side, we started in Formula Vs, and he's pushed it. I mean, I'll never forget when I first started and I looked at the Formula VW, the car that Garth was driving, and the car that I'm currently driving. I said to my dad, I wish I could drive one of those, because it was just too much of it out of our budget at that time. And then, 3, 4 years, 5 years later, here we are, he's bought me one, and we're working on it all the time, and he's giving me as much as he can.
But I mean, did he not build this one?
So we bought the car as a second-hand car. This is the current car. We bought the car as a second-hand car, so it was an assembled, but it was in no state of racing condition. It obviously hadn't been looked after.
Yeah.
So what we decided to do was strip it, as we do with everything we buy, all race cars. We stripped it down. We stripped it to the bare chassis, and we redid it from scratch. So that's where he shines. Is whenever it comes to building something, he's the guy to go to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can remember when we did which I must get to that point. We probably can get to it now. When we did the endurance race, I've always wanted to do a full season of endurance racing, and the problem that I experienced then, and I think a lot of people are still experiencing today is the lack of expertise on engineering, of a race car. There's a lot of guys out there that profess to be race engineers, and the standard of workmanship, I must say, in general, around our country and Cape Town specifically, is really poor. And you really have to rely on, we're risking our lives on every lap that we go around that track. And we'll be getting up to 250 kilometers plus twice on every lap. Yeah. And, anything goes wrong at that pace, it's potentially good night. And and yet, I find that the standard of workmanship, and I'm saying it out here now live, it is really poor out there. And I wanted to always do an endurance race, but my car would barely last a normal sprint race. And there'd be some major bloody work that has to be done on it. And this is how it goes on and on and on. And so even if I wanted to, I would never finish an endurance race. And I can remember, I was so keen because, having retired from flying, I thought, well, this is the perfect time now. I can actually dedicate myself completely and do the entire series for a year, which is normally about 5 or 6 4-hour, 6-hour, or 9-hour races, combined in whatever permutation it is. And so I remember doing a sprint race with the Juno before that 9-hour that we did, way before, 6 months before that. And I had tremendous problems with the car then, and I said to the maintenance team, I really want to do an endurance race with this car. I'd done it before with a 996 Cup car with Andre Besaiden in Velkom. It was a 6-hour, and we actually came second there. But that was, those days it was just a case. If you just finish the race, you're in somewhere along the line. And anyway, I had this opportunity. Okay, I really wanted to do it, but I started sort of figuring out, who'd want to drive with me.
Who'd be crazy enough to do that?
Exactly. And everybody's like, oh, shit, but that car can't even finish a sprint race. It's going to be money thrown away. And I remember your dad coming up and said, I believe you're looking for a driver. Couldn't my son drive with you? Which is you, of course. And I was very excited because I obviously been watching your driving and seeing how well you do and how fast you are around there and what an incredible driver you are. And I just thought to myself, holy shit, if I can have a driver like you on my team, I just got to get the car sorted out because that'll be really excellent because, I'm a gentleman driver. I'm the so-called safe driver, and you're a safe and fast driver, but more fast than safe. I'm more safe than fast.
Yeah.
And I'm going to relate the story again. And when I said, before I could even think of saying, this is what it costs, because in endurance series, I'm just going to explain it again for those guys who don't know how it works out there. Somebody owns the car, and the other drivers, you need at least 2 drivers for an endurance race. So one of those 2 drivers is typically going to own the car, and the other guy will pay to drive. Before I could sort of say to your dad, which is Byron Mitchell, he just stopped me right there and he said, but here's the deal. I'm not going to pay you a cent. And I hesitated, I didn't want to say anything before I heard all the facts. He said, I want to run and maintain the car for the race because my son is in that car. And that was like the most magical words to me because then I knew it would be done properly. Because he has a father who's extremely concerned about what his son's climbing into, and he would only allow him to climb in a car that he has gone through from A to Z. And and I just said, let's do it. I'm so happy with that. And then that's how we got going. When we did that 9 hour in 2022, and it was a learning circle exercise of note. I still remember him and Elroy Weiss and saying, Jesus, if they knew how much work they had put into this car, they wouldn't have taken it on. But we were there now, and we did the 9 hour, and we finished the 9 hour. And that was the main goal, was to just finish the 9 hour to see what this car can do it. I mean, they literally probably did 1,000 hours of labor on that car just to prepare it for that, because as they were working it, they had to pull everything apart. And then the maintenance that was done on that car was absolutely horrendous.
So I agree with you to some extent, but I must say that the reason I've thought about this a lot with a lot of people, and I've spoken to a lot of people, and I think the reason that South Africa struggles to maintain these sorts of cars, like the Junos and like the GT3 cars and all that, these cars are designed by really, really smart people overseas, in Europe, in America, wherever, where they have the facilities to, if something gets worn out, the suspension's worn out, new. That's it. And I think in South African motorsport, the budget isn't there to just replace new after every 6 months. New this, new that, new engine, new gearbox, new, that's not the South African budget, unfortunately. And I think what makes us a good team is that, obviously, because we own our own engineering shop, it makes that...
What is the name of your...
Dolphin Engineering.
Dolphin Engineering. Guys,
He
wants stuff built or engineered.
Any parts machined up, anything, we can do.
He made every component.
I mean,
oh no, this is going to cost the suppliers of these parts. Oh no, you can't get this. We got to import it. These parts very expensive and so on, but we've got to import it. Your dad, I'll make it.
Yeah,
he just goes and makes it in his workshop, and he makes it better than the original part.
So obviously, I mean, the thing about race cars, as you said earlier, if you get one thing wrong, it can be incredibly dangerous to the driver.
Yeah.
I mean, and not just the driver, there's other people on the track with you,
Of course.
You go over this balustrades, you're involving spectators in an accident.
Yeah.
So there's lots can go wrong. So I think the thing that we do very different is we take it as professionally as we can. I mean, when we machined all the new components for your car, it was all out of 7062 aircraft grade aluminium, which we had to specially import from Johannesburg. So I mean, the components, the only way they're going to break is if you actually crash the car. They're not going to just break by themselves, or a bolt breaks or something like that. I mean, and all the bolts and nuts we put on there are special aircraft grade. They're called K nuts, so it's a special locking nut. So the point of it is when we build something, my dad always goes over the top. And it was actually something that he had to nurture down a bit. When we designed cars in the beginning, and we were building and rebuilding a lot of cars, he would over-engineer it. He would make the part too heavy, but it would never break. That car will still be running in 1,000 years' time. But the problem is he learned very quickly that in motorsport, weight is almost everything.
It's a big thing, yeah.
So then we started looking at, as I say now, aircraft-grade aluminium, and you start looking at the really expensive, chunky materials that aren't going to break, but that are really reliable.
Yeah.
And that's what we did when we did your car. I mean, all those spare suspension brackets, that whole rear adapter plate, everything was made out of solid 7062 aluminium. And I mean, there's a lot of other
tell me, was
components.
the original one not out of 762
It would have
aluminium?
been. It would have been, but obviously...
It was cracked. I mean, it
over
was
the
welded
years,
so many times to fix it up. And I remember it was skewed, it was bowed, incorrectly torqued. The alignment of the engine was incorrect. So, everything was out of alignment.
Yeah, so the engine was actually sitting skewed to the gearbox, because where it locates in the front frame, you've got we made Teflon spaces, solid Teflon spaces that we had to, I tell you, Peter, it was a nightmare. We had to put that engine in and out about 3 times, getting the measurements right. It was in, measure out, in, measure out, in. But anyway, we managed to get it right, and obviously it did its job and it was good. But I think that's why I always come back to the point of South African motorsport struggles with the financial side. There's no Formula One. The teams manufacturing components. Every second race, probably every race, half those components are put and recycled and new components are put on. I mean, if you could do that to let's say a Juno, if after every 3 endurance races, you replace everything, I mean, the car will never give problems. I mean, that's self-explanatory. But it's just the cost of that for South African motorsport is you can't,
No, it's hugely expensive. And I mean, this is why I'm trying my best to retire from racing, you know.
Yeah.
And, if I could just get somebody to take over my car or take half of the car, or I'm even prepared to do this next 6 hours if you come on board and your dad runs the car again, I'll do it.
It's a lot of work. Sure.
Yeah.
I must say we learned a lot. And we look at it, and I always say to my dad, if we could go back to the beginning of the year, we went through, I mean, you were there, we went through so many troubles. Oh, goodness. The amount of races we thought we're not finishing, and we did.
Yeah.
You know? And I say to my dad, and I still say to him, I say, you know, the amount of crap that we went through was worth it. I'll say, if you put me back to the beginning of 2023, the excitement, the build up, it was worth it. You know, it was an experience that not many people get to experience in their life.
Yeah.
And
that was your first endurance race.
And
it was. I remember the excitement when you took that car around the track for the first time. You thought, holy shit.
So do you remember what happened at the first 9 hour?
The first 9 hours?
The first ever endurance race we did.
Where you guys worked through the night?
Where we worked, remember that?
I slept in the car. I gave up.
I mean, that was
slept in the car.
unbelievable. Like, had it been anybody else, we would have been done.
So do you have, I don't know if I've ever told you the whole story to that, how that happened.
Tell me.
So on Friday, we had qualifying Friday night.
Yeah.
And obviously me, Elroy, and my dad, we would set the car up and we would go through the lists and that and check everything. And we had gotten the point where the car felt really good throughout the day. I mean, you and Sean had been driving a lot on the Friday. And I'd gotten to a point where I think the car felt as stable as we could get it. Obviously, as a racing driver, in endurance racing, you have to accommodate for all the drivers. So if I could have made any changes, I probably would have made the car a lot more aggressive, which means I'm going to make it a lot less stable on the rear.
Yeah.
But the thing is in a 9-hour endurance race, you don't want to have those twitchy moments, especially if you've got 3 different drivers.
Right.
So we had got to a point where I was very happy with the balance of it. And I think everybody, all of the guys, you and Sean was also extremely happy with the balance. I think we were happy. And we went into qualifying, heads up, ready to go. And I knew the Pirellis overheated. So I think what I did was I said, right, I'm going to give myself 2 flying laps. I'm going to let the tires cool off for 2 laps. And then I'm going to go do another 2 flying laps and see if I could get that to work. And on the first flying lap, I actually got held up with I think it was that V8 or something. It was in turn 5, and it was a very, very good lap. And actually, I got held up a little bit, and I probably lost about half a second. And it wasn't a great time or whatever. I can't even remember what the first lap was.
Yeah.
And then I thought, okay, don't let it bug you. Hit the second lap, okay, it was maybe like 2 tenths quicker. I thought, okay, now these tires are now starting to, because obviously you've built them up, and the Pirellis, when they overheat, you lose that half a second, just like that. And anyway, we came into the pits and I let them cool off a bit. And I was speaking to Elroy and that and my dad, and we were discussing. And okay, we went out and I said, right, this is it. And on my first flying lap, I go into turn 3 and the car's got immense amount of understeer. And I think, oh man, this hasn't happened the whole weekend. What's happening? Anyway, I go into turn 4, it's fine. And then I did I think it was like a 10.5 or something like that, or 10.6 or something. Then the next lap, I'm like, okay, I've had immense amount of understeer. I can now actually get rid of it. I know as a driver, you learn to adapt. I went into turn 3 and I nearly lost it. And I just lost the rear and I nearly lost it. And I came through and we did, I think it was like a 10.4 or was a mid 10 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I said to my dad, I said, something's wrong. I said, this car, that's not how a race car handles. It doesn't go from one extreme to the next extreme within one lap. And anyway, we were looking and we checked and we couldn't find anything. And then I thought, okay, maybe there was a bit of oil on the track that I'd hit. Maybe that's a possibility. It's Kalani. It does happen a lot. And then I thought, okay, it was a bit at the back of my head, but I didn't want to let it bug me a bit much. And I didn't want to let it bug me too much. And we sat down and then we jacked the car up. And this must have been at about 5 o'clock in the evening. And one of the guys, Fani, he was helping us. And he looks and he says, guys, is there meant to be this gap here? We're like, what gap? And everyone's like, what? And there was a gap between, so you've got the engine, you've got the bell housing, and then the gearbox.
Yeah.
So then the gearbox bolts onto the bell housing, which bolts onto the engine, and all that. There was this big gap, probably like 5 mil gap between the bell housing and the engine.
I remember this coming back to me now, yeah.
And Ari looks, and my dad looks, and they go, doesn't remember.
Yeah.
And Jonty grabs the back wing and he wiggles it, and the whole gearbox goes like this, probably about 10 mils sideways.
Really?
Yeah. And I said to my dad, I said, and that's when we all stopped and we all looked at each other and we knew what had to done. The gearbox had to come off But we know how difficult it is to get that gearbox up.
I remember getting the dreaded phone call at
It
home
was on this
from
all
your
happened.
dad. Pete, we're out.
Yeah,
I said, no, man, can't be. We got a big problem here.
yeah.
We're out of the race. And I had to try and pull him back into the conversation. Come on, turn here. He says, no, he'll come back to me. I said, come on, guys, give it a go.
On the back of on the other end of that phone call, he came to us all and he's like, okay, what do we do? And I looked at Ulrich and we were all exhausted. I mean, we'd put in so much time and effort for this. To pull the gearbox out again is, And I looked at Ulrich, and I looked at Fani, and Ulrich said, what do you want to do, Byron? It's your call. And I looked at Jonty and I looked at the whole team and I'm just quiet and everyone's waiting. And I said, well, if we just stand here and stare at it, nothing's going to happen. So let's fucking get working.
Let's do it. Yeah,
And I'll never forget, I turned around and Fani picked up a span. He says, right, what do you need? I'm like, I don't need that, but I need that. And we just started stripping and stripping and stripping. And
this is now the night
this
before
is now
the race.
7 o'clock Friday night.
Yeah.
7, 8
I
o'clock.
remember this, and we were all at the edge of our seats.
Yeah.
We already put in 1,000 hours of labor to
it's
get to this
ridiculous,
point, and now you have this.
Yeah.
And you knew all you had to do was get that gearbox out, realign it.
Yeah, get the gearbox out. And we actually didn't even know what the problem was. We were just trying to see if we could figure it out. Because it was inside the bell housing. We didn't know, is the bell housing broken? Because if the bell housing was broken, we would have been out. Because we don't have a spare one. To machine that up is not going to be like now, instantly.
Yeah.
So we took it on and we thought, okay, let's just see. Maybe we find that a bolt's come loose or something like that. You never know. And long story short, we worked right through the night. Right through the night. I know when we had put that car back to, long story, what happened was there was a bolt that bolts the bolts that were on the gearbox, the motor had come loose and the bell housing, it was working its way loose. And if that bell housing came loose, that would have been the car split into two pieces.
Destroyed it, yeah.
So we were very lucky and we managed to get it all sorted and fixed. And I'll never forget, I think the first warm-up was at like 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And 7 o'clock in that morning.
You hadn't slept. You were basically killed out.
Kelly,
I remember coming in the morning and you were like dossing in some chair there. Everybody was sleeping and you guys had worked right through the night.
So Kelly went to sleep in the car at probably about
They forgot about me.
11:30.
They forget about
They
you.
forgot. No, it was like,
nice one, Cyril.
No, it was like 1. I went.
Was it that late? I can't even remember.
Because I was still going back and forth trying to get you guys coffees and then helping with the
the
rags and
coffee
stuff.
lady.
And then I got so tired and I went to my car and I was lying in the back and I had the door open. They completely forgot about me. So I woke up, I walked in about 2 a.m., so like an hour.
And they were still at it.
They were still at it. And then I said, guys, are you still busy? They were like, oh, hi, Kelly. And I was like,
So
I drove home. I went through every red robot. I went home to sleep. And then when I got back the next morning, they were still busy.
So we had myself, it was Jonty, Elroy, Trevor, Fani, Kelly, and my dad. We were all there. And they started falling like flies. At about 1 o'clock, Kelly left.
I was first.
Kelly left first. And then at about maybe 1:30, Jonty left. He said, no, he needs to go sleep.
He's done.
Yeah, he's done. And then at about like 3 o'clock, Trevor said he needs to go home. He's done. Trevor.
Yeah.
And now it was me, my dad, and Ulrich left. And I said, guys, we have to. We have to. And I'll never forget, Trevor, I don't even think Trevor went to go home to sleep. I think he went home and showered and came back because he left at 3 and he was back at 5. So there's no ways he went to sleep.
Yeah, there's no ways he could have gotten any sleep.
And he came back and at 7 o'clock, that car was put on the floor and I was the one that had to take it around the pits to make sure the gearbox was everything was working. And I remember, and as I got out the car, we tested it, all was happy, and I got out the car and I got this phone call from my friend Umpi. And Kelly had obviously explained the story, and he said, bro, what's happening? I was like, no, just finished on the car. He's like, did you not got any? I told him the story. He says, right, I'm bringing you a Red Bull and a coffee. I'll be there shortly. And at about 8:30, we took the car to the garage, and we started setting it up, did the corner weights, alignments, obviously. And then at 9:30, we went, I went out in the practice, and we checked everything was right. Everything was good. Then my mom brought a stretcher from home. We put a stretcher up there and I had probably about an hour's sleep. And then we went into the race.
But I mean, that's, if I think about you had no sleep, you guys were actually on the car from the previous morning.
Yeah.
So you were like 36, 38 hours.
I only went to bed. So I woke up at 6 o'clock Friday morning and I only went to bed at 10:30 Saturday night because we still had to pack up after the race.
Yeah.
It was about 11 actually because we only got home at 11. So I was awake from 6 o'clock Friday morning all the way until 11 o'clock Saturday night. No sleep. Maybe an hour here.
That's testament to. Listen, when I came there to the track, and I obviously knew what went on and how little sleep you guys had. And I looked at you, and I was just amazed at where you draw your energy from, and to still go out there and pump it 250 k's an hour around the track, and you need absolutely maximum concentration. It was really at that point where I knew I had a driver on my team that's going to carry on this whole series, and a team, your dad and Elroy and the whole lot of them.
The whole lot, yeah.
They were absolutely determined to get this car going. You could have all given up, given me the middle finger, and try this exercise on your own.
I think that's what makes us different, hey?
It does.
The grit that we have.
The grit you guys, and look what you've done today. And then what happened? We then all sat around a table and we decided, okay, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
This 2023 Endurance Series. And I remember just, all of us just sitting around the table and say, all we need to do is finish every race.
That's it. That's South Africa. You just have to
That's
finish.
all we need to do. And because that's endurance racing, there's always a breakdown. There's always a race that you're going to fail.
To win, you need to finish. That's how we looked at it.
Exactly.
Oh.
And then your dad and the whole team meticulously rebuilt that car
Again.
front
After the
to
9
back.
hour, yeah.
And that's what the people out there, the racing fraternity out there don't realize, how that car has actually been rebuilt back to regional spec. It's better than it was, and quite frankly.
So in 2023, we pulled the engine and the gearbox out. It was 5 times. 5 times in 1 year. That's how many times we made sure. And it was small things that went wrong, but the problem is you could ignore them. I mean, we could have ignored it and moved on, but unfortunately, that's not how we as a team used to operate or still operate.
Yeah.
When there's a problem, doesn't matter how big or small it is, we give 100% commitment.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've had it once before in the VW where I had that massive accident down the back straight. I mean, that was just tiny error that we had done. We had put the brake line in the line of the CV boot, and it got caught. And I mean, it was a very costly, expensive, costly adventure, and also it was, traumatizing to a lot of my dad, my mom,
Tell
family.
me about that accident, because when was that?
When was that? 2022? It was 2021, I think, because that was the first year I did the hill climb, and I remember I did the hill climb in that car. I think it was 2021.
Yeah,
I'm sure
2022.
it was. Was it 2022?
2022.
No, are you sure? I'm sure it's 2022 or 2021.
Saw when I posted your video of your crash.
And
2022. Okay.
I think
How old were you then?
Towards the end of the year. It
was my first hill climb? No, I'm sure it was 2021 because the first hill climb was 21. The second hill climb was 22. 23, the camshaft position sensor failed. 24, the engine blew up. And 25, we won. Yeah, it was 2021. It was beginning of 2021.
So I posted that 2022.
Yeah, but we had that video for a while, I think.
No, I posted this shortly after. Obviously, I made a meme of it.
Holy shit, I've never seen that video.
He must send it to you. Sorry, I just made a meme of it and then went viral on TikTok. So.
Yeah, tell him how many views there. Tell him.
I need.
Listen to this, Peter.
360,000 views, and then it was actually. Let me tell
people love watching people crash for some reason.
No, isn't it? Isn't it a weird thing?
Crazy.
I need to. I don't have a TikTok account. I need
and
to
then
get a TikTok account.
34,000 likes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and then 114 comments. A lot of people were asking what went wrong and all of that, so then I had to get Byron to type it out
We
for
must
me.
definitely put that, Jen. I want this little video to go on as a B-roll on this program. Yeah.
So what ended up happening in that whole situation? We had just got the car from Garth de Villiers. Now he's actually I can call him my chief engineer. He's my chief engineer. He's helped me through everything, sim racing, real life racing. He's always been there. He's helped me with everything I need. He's there. I mean, even business. He's always there. Awesome person.
Yeah.
And we got the car from him, and the whole point was we wanted to do the hill climb. And we went up there to buy a spare motor from him for the hill climb. And he said, well, I've got a better idea. Why don't you sell your car and buy my car? Okay. And it comes with a spare engine, a hill climb engine, and the launch controls installed and all that. So my dad was like, oh, this is an awesome deal. Yeah, perfect. So we did that, and that was our first race in the new car.
Is this now on the hill climb or on the track?
This is on the track.
That
Yeah.
crash was his
Okay.
first time.
And what
And
happened
that's
was
2022, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure it's 2021, but we're gonna. I think it's
Anyway.
it was one of the two, but we don't know.
We'll find
Give or
out.
take,
we'll
yeah.
Give or take a year. COVID screwed us all around.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, so then
Nothing counts.
yeah, so then what happened was. The guys said it was exciting, a new adventure. We had a new car and we had set it up. And my previous best time in my old car was like a 1:10.4 at Kalani. It was 1:10. It was 1:10.2. Sorry, I lie. It was 1:10.2 in Android, then a 1:10.1. And I remember because now this was probably about a month before the hill climb, my first ever hill climb. And I said, right, I just want to just use this race to get used to the car so that I know what I'm jumping into. You know, you're going to the hill, it's daunting. You're on a road. And you want to be comfortable in the car. And I was taking it easy. And I'll never forget, I mean, I think I did like a 10.5 or something like that. And I was taking it really relaxed, okay? And it's just because the way that the car had been set up compared to my old car and the way that the dampers were set up and everything was set up, the car just felt naturally, how do I say, a lot more stable, okay?
Yeah.
And we ended up racing that, and yeah, it was a bit of a bad one. We don't, as a team, we don't blame anyone. It was all of our responsibility to check what was happening, and unfortunately, one of the rear left CV, the rear left brake line, was routed in a way that it got hooked between the CV and the suspension, and it tore the brake line open. So, and it had to happen at the worst possible point
At
down
the
the
fastest
back, the fastest
point
part.
of the track.
That's what Murphy does. And for 7 laps, perfect. Going into turn 4, touch the brake pedal, perfect. And as I went into turn 5, hit that brake pedal, and the pedal just went flat to the floor.
Jeez.
And yeah, we only figured this all out afterwards. But what actually went wrong was as I hit the brake pedal, okay, the brake pedal went flat. And the best part is I actually had comms to my dad who was on the radio. And it all happened so fast, he can't even remember what happened. But all I remember is when I made contact with the wall, the comms died instantly.
Oh.
Everything died. The whole car died, everything died. So when I hit the brake pedal went, as I say, long. I mean, to people that don't really race, it just went to the floor. Like you push the brake and just imagine pushing something that's just not there. It just went flat. And the brake bias cable runs on the right-hand side and then up into the cockpit. And it hooked the accelerator pedal. So as I braked, and now this is obviously, so we actually got hold of VW Motorsport and the guys that were running the cars in the series before, and we said, has this ever happened? And someone said, they were like, no, they've never had a head-on crash like that before or loss of brakes, so they have never figured it out. But the brake pedal was designed that the brake bias cable hooks the brake pedal. So at sixth gear, 240 k's an hour, 7,800 RPM, I was braking with essentially no brake pressure, but the throttle was at 40% throttle or 30% throttle or whatever it was. So I was essentially accelerating into the wall. And that's why on the video you'll see as I touched the brake pedal, the front's locked up instantly because all the rear brake pressure was gone. So my 100 kilos of force or whatever we're pushing through the pedal went straight to the front cylinder, and it just, your front wheels instantly locked. And the fact that the rear was still spinning because you had hooked the accelerator pedal was now pushing the front.
Jeez.
So we lost brakes at 242, and I made contact with the wall at 197. So
Joking.
So what happened was, because turn 5's banked, the car kind of caught airborne, and then it like scraped along the sand. It kind of did this over the sand, and then it just went straight into the tires. And
So at point of contact with the tire,
197, to a dead stop. It knocked, I promise you, it knocks the wind out of you. It really does. And
holy cow! I mean, is that even survivable? I mean,
geez.
fortunately with the tires.
That's the big thing. About a few months back, Kalani actually installed those tires there because someone else had a similar wall off, and they went straight through the back concrete wall. And
they only had a thin layer of tires, so they added more.
Yeah.
So Byron actually dove on top of the tires technically.
Because the single seater is like a bullet. Call it like that.
Yeah.
it pierced into the first layer of tires, threw them over the second layer, and the car landed upright. So I was very, very lucky that there were tires there. If there was no tires there, I honestly can come to, I don't know, this is a scary thought, but I wouldn't be sitting here today because there was a concrete wall at the back there.
Yeah.
I mean, if I hit that concrete wall at 197, those cars don't have a halo. That concrete goes straight into your, as a single-seater driver, into your helmet, and that's it.
Well, you know, I had an accident at Killarney. The one and only accident I've ever had,
Oh, shame.
be it in real car and race cars, was a very similar situation, but except they didn't have tires there. It was at I was testing somebody's car. They said, please test my car. Tell me what you think about it. I said, but I don't drive other people's cars because I don't know what their maintenance is like. And, you know, what? No, it's all been done. We've done the brakes, we've done this, complete overhaul and that. But, yeah, take it around for a couple of laps and just give us your opinion. And then I said, look, I'll do it, but I'm not responsible if anything goes wrong with this car.
Of course. That's racing,
And don't come to me and say, you know, you crashed the car or whatever, and I must pay for it or anything like that because I'm not going to go balls to the wall. But in essence, I really don't want to do this. No.
Yes.
Anyway, they said go. And it was a Sirocco. And on the third lap, I was going a little bit quicker on each lap, feeling the car. It felt quite nice. And it had rained for a few days before that. So the sides of the track were all waterlogged. And the track was dry. But I mean, properly waterlogged, the side of the track. Yeah. And so coming down the front straight, just after the wall, you know, the pit wall, there's like a little sort of a hump there.
Yes, yeah. I know where that is. Yeah.
You would know.
Yeah.
But literally about at that point, the car snapped to the right, and it went off the track like immediately, and it slid sideways. And the wall at the end there, in front of that stand over there.
Yeah.
I looked at that wall and
comes quickly, eh?
And I thought, definitely going to stop before I hit that wall because I mean it's from the end of the pit wall. It's basically almost in front of the Porsche clubhouse.
Yeah, it's probably about 300 meters. Yeah, 400 meters, half a kilometer. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a far away.
Far away. And I looked at the wall and I thought, God, we'll stop before we get there. Looked at it again. I mean, everything happens, as you know, in slow motion. And no, it's probably not going to stop before I get there. It's definitely not going to stop before I get there. And then I just braced myself, looked forward because I was going sideways.
Yeah.
It was a right-hand drive car, fortunately. And that wall, it had a few truck tires filled with concrete.
Oh, no.
Like that. And it made a V. And there were no tires in front of it, and there was no sand trap in front of it, as there is today. And I hit that car exactly on that V. And the speedo it stopped at 140 kilometers an hour, and it bounced back about, I would say the length of this garage could be about 5 meters, 8 meters. So it hit the wall and bounced back. And as a result of that accident, they did all the tires, they packed all the tires, and they put that major sand trap in there.
Yeah.
Actually, 100% it was quite involved in getting that thing because he said the last person to hit that wall was 20 years prior to that, and he broke his neck and died instantly. I got whiplash, but I couldn't get out the car, couldn't move. And, guys came rushing and, are you okay? I said, I feel fine. I just can't get out the car. I wanted to get out the car, and every time I did that, I got these sharp pains in my back. I actually thought I'd broke my back. Anyway, they eventually cut me out of the wreck and put a board in and dragged me out of the car, took me to hospital. They did a scan on me, and I landed up in ICU, which I still said, why am I in ICU? I feel fine, but I just can't get up. And they said, no, pain management. But what had happened is the ribs, the seat, because I tore the seat out of its mountings.
Yeah.
It was an aluminium seat. The aluminium type wasn't carbon. I bent that whole thing open with my ribs. So the ribs broke next to the spine, not where they normally break here in front. So a whole bunch of them broke there, and they were sort of around my lung, but fortunately no piercing in the lung.
Yeah.
So they had to get me up straight. So they pumped me full of morphine and stuff for 5 days. I was there in thing just chirping shit and, so morph on all the pethidine and until they finally they could get me upright to take a deep breath in to realign the ribs and stuff like that. So, but that was at 140 k's an hour. And, it was against a solid wall. I mean, you went 190 k's into straight on, head on. Fortunately,
197, yeah.
Jesus, that's like.
Yeah, I can't even remember what the G's.
That is.
I can't even remember what the G's got to, but it was far less than what it would have got to if it was a solid wall. So the tires did take a lot of the impact. But what actually happened was, and this is the scariest part. So once it had happened, as I said, the comms went dead and the car cut out and everything turned off. And I remember sitting there and I actually tried to climb out. And your natural instinct as a human in something like this is just get out the car and just, just get out. You don't want to be in this thing. And especially a single seater. You're so cramped in there. You don't want to be in this thing. And I remember moving forward and I'm just like taking a few deep breaths, just trying to recuperate myself because it knocks the wind out of you completely. I mean, your seatbelts take a big...
Shame he asked the marshal, is the car okay? He was out of it.
What ended up happening was I actually stretched the seatbelts. Now, we had to throw the seatbelts away. I actually stretched them from the impact. And luckily they did their job. I mean, that's what they do. And... the medics came and everyone came and they kept me in the car for safety reasons because, as you say, you felt fine with adrenaline, but you didn't realize what it actually was going wrong.
Safety check,
So they just said, please, just stay in the car. You need to make sure everything's all right. And then the medics came and they went through their whole procedure and they checked and then they had to take my whole neck brace off and out the car and that. And I'll never forget, I climbed out the car and I looked down and the single-seaters have what we call wishbones, the front suspension. They had pierced straight through the carbon tub. Okay, straight through the battery and had stopped inside my seat.
Just under his legs.
Two chrome moly knives, as you can call them.
Yeah.
They pierced straight through, crisscrossed over each other like that and was in my seat. And my dad was there and he looked down at this and he just thought, what the hell? How the hell has this happened? And it was extreme. I mean, to this day, in that seat, I've still got 2 holes in the seat. If they had moved maybe another 2 centimeters, 20 mils, I would have had those things in the bottom of my legs and I probably wouldn't have got out that car. I would have probably just bled out in there because that was like 2 blade, like knives, just going straight through that. I mean, it pierced straight through the thick 30 mil carbon, through the battery, through the flipping second piece of carbon, the protective layer, into the seat. So I was very lucky. And obviously we've learned from that. I mean, the cars now have been, what we've done is we've taken thick stainless steel plates and we've actually molded reinforced the chassis so that it can't happen again. So that if they do hit, it'll just deflect off the side.
You'll see on the new car, it's this 2 pieces on the side. It's quite funny. And when I noticed it, I was like, oh, you've reinforced it. They were like, it's not going to happen again.
Not going to happen again.
You never put that situation in the universe.
That was crazy.
And that, it was an eye-opener for everybody. I mean, I'll never forget, Garth phoned me that day. And I said to him, Garth, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. I don't know this, that. And he's like, are you okay?
Yeah.
He literally, he's like, I don't care. And he's like, are you okay? I said, yeah, I'm fine. He said, right, we will look at the data. Then when we looked at the data during the week, we obviously figured out what had happened and the accelerator pedal was perfectly matching the brake pedal trace and, it got caught. And
It must have been 2021 because I was still in my green V. Because I remember the race was red flagged and I couldn't see where you were. Yeah. And then when I just got halfway through turn 5 and I looked because obviously I can't turn my head that much because of my neck brace. What are those called?
The neck brace, the safety device.
So basically you can only turn a certain length. But I just saw this car and all these marshals running and then I started panicking. So
were you in that race?
Yeah, I was there, good. And then I drove in, and then all ran.
Anxiety at its maximum.
We all ran down, and the dad was like, "Move out my way to the marshals." And
Gordon,
my dad was lost his marbles because I mean he was on the comms with me, and then the next thing when I hit the wall, everything just goes dead quiet. Because everything was
testing for the hill climb. So I remember it must have been 2021 because it was just before the hill climb. And it was about a month before, and then you had to rebuild that entire thing, and then bring down new front wings and stuff. For,
we were very lucky.
PE, yeah.
Garth
helped a lot.
Garth gave us new front wings, new everything, new everything sorted. And we got it ready. A month later, went to the hill climb.
Month later, wow.
Won the hill climb in our class and came third overall.